Hello students, welcome to class. Here I am, I'm in my front yard here and coming to you from the Zoghazi Leproc area of Tirana. And I hope you all and your families and your friends are all safe and well and finding things to do during this quarantine period. And speaking of the quarantine period, that's kind of about what the lesson is going to be about this week. I wanted to talk about how these are extraordinary times. We're living in extraordinary times. In my 42 years, I've never experienced anything like this abroad or anywhere else. And so to my thinking, if it's extraordinary times, that means it's also a time and opportunity for extraordinary learning. So why not take advantage of that, right? Maybe these times like this might come only once in a generation, and so we have to make sure that we pay attention to the lessons that we are learning from the circumstances. In my mind, this is the perfect opportunity for change, both at an individual or micro and a societal or macro level. And the virus has created a domino effect that is now exposing flaws in our economic system. And everyone who takes the time to look at those flaws can learn something very valuable from them. So I'd like to start a discussion with you about what we can learn from the recent and possible future events that have taken place. And it's through discussion of events, of course, that we can solidify lessons and learn from them and gain insightful new perspectives that help us grow intellectually and hopefully humanistically. And you might ask, well, what do you mean by humanistically? Is that even a word? And what I mean by that is when we experience events that affect us all, everybody in the world, in some positive or negative way, it tends to draw us together as a species rather than divide us. The more the species is threatened, the more important it becomes to work cooperatively rather than competitively. And this can lead to tribalism, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. So you imagine a herd of elk or something, or a herd of zebras in the African safari. They got to work together. They got to make sure that they stay together. It's through the togetherness that they can keep the herd, most of the herd, safe from the lions and the jackals and various other things, because they can band together to overcome the threats. They have to work cooperatively. They don't want to compete against each other in the herd too much, or else it disrupts the balance. So we have a lot of lions, a lot of jackals out there right now, so to speak, threatening the human race in the form of a virus. And it's not just the virus itself, but the effects of the virus. And we got to think to ourselves to be able to focus on these events, because these events help us define ourselves as who we are as a species. Who are we? Who are you? Are you like me? Do you have the same needs and wants as many others of the same species? Would it be more beneficial to you if you worked together to achieve those needs and desires, or would it be better to take the path of rugged individualism and define yourself as a competitor to the rest of your species? And times like this kind of bring these questions into focus. And just we can ask these questions about ourselves at an individual or micro level, so can we ask these questions about our social systems at a macro level. So what this virus is currently doing is it is making us notice things we may not have noticed before by creating an environment or situation that exposes unpleasant realities about our normal way of doing things. And when we begin to analyze these ways of doing things, we can quickly learn not only about those systems, but also about ourselves. It goes both ways. The more we know about the machine we are all a part of, the more we recognize about what part we have to play in that machine. The more we learn about the machine and what part we play, the more introspective we become about our feelings about that machine and what part of the machine we are. Questions begin to be raised, such as, is this the best machine society can build? Do I have to be part of this machine? How can I improve things from within the machine? Is it possible to change the overall machine by resisting or changing my role or part in the machine? What other kinds of machines are possible? And these aren't really new questions. Philosophers have been discussing these things for millennia, since the creation of money and writing, and thus reliable accounting systems over ownership of resources, people have tried many different ways of building different machines. Some machines produce different outcomes than others. Each has its flaws. But one thing stays the same. Each one of us is trying to satisfy our needs and desires as part of a societal system. And we are the only thing standing between doing things the normal way and prolonging the lifetime of the system, or changing things for the better. So then the question is raised, who should we be improving things for? Should we be trying to improve things for ourselves, for our families, our village, our city, our country, our continent, or our world? Some of you may remember we analyzed last trimester the lyrics of the song Little Boxes. Humans like to create boxes, neat little boxes we can fit ourselves and others into. It makes organization much easier, right? However, organization isn't always best resolved by using boxes. Life and the cosmos are ever shifting, evolving, and changing. What may fit into a certain box at one time could be changed by everything else around it and thus evolve into a new box. These boxes humans create can also be symbols of our misunderstanding of natural processes, such as we see when scientific understanding of something evolves and deepens. The more we study something, the more the original boxes no longer suffice. So, new boxes are created. This is just another way of saying that until we have that aha moment that sheds light on the truth of a matter, we can keep just bungling around in the dark, not knowing that we don't know. Which leads me to one of my favorite sayings or sentences. If you don't know that you don't know, you can't know that you don't know until new information is made available. Now that may be a hard sentence to follow for some of you, but let me explain a little further and try to help you understand what this has to do with the overall topic. Got some notes here. So imagine a ladder. You got this ladder, and it's a ladder of understanding. In order to climb the ladder of understanding, you need to know the ladder is there, first of all, right? Some people may have already noticed that ladder. They begin climbing it, right? They understand that they need to know more. They know that they don't know, and thus they start climbing to learn more. They may even report back to others about what they found. But unfortunately, and I'm sure you've noticed, some people either don't pay attention to those reports or didn't ever get a chance to hear them. And so they go about their lives unaware of the ladder or the lessons to be learned by climbing each step. Now, the lowest possible step on this ladder is not knowing that the ladder exists. How can you climb the ladder of understanding if you don't even know it exists? And the first step to climbing the ladder, thus, is having knowledge of its existence, finding yourself on the ladder at some point, finding out that you don't know so that you can start to learn. This can come to you in all kinds of ways. You may not even realize you found the ladder because you haven't been told what a ladder is by somebody else who's climbed it before. This might be a little confusing. Don't worry if it is. It's confusing to everyone until they really find themselves on the ladder, then it starts to make more sense. But this virus, for many, will be the first step of the ladder. They now know the ladder exists, and they have climbed the first step on their way to understanding things that they didn't even know they had to understand, that it mattered that they understood. But not only that, the other steps are more and more clear each day as they are pushed up the ladder by their experiences. The virus, thus, is like a boost up the ladder for the entire species. They can't help but understand more about everything since the reality of our human systems becomes apparent. The flaws are laid bare, and discussion about those flaws flows throughout the species at lightning speed, like we're doing now. And from those discussions, alternatives are brought up and filtered down to popular options. Cause and effect then teach us in real time. Everybody is awake and paying attention to the situation at a micro and a macro level. Understanding is thus no longer the domain of a few scientists, but becomes the reality for all who are affected by this ultra catalyst for understanding. Question is, as it has happened in the past, can things go back to the way they were before? Well, yeah, perhaps. Perhaps they can. But that is beside the point. It is during these shared macro events that change for the better is possible. That changing the machine as a whole is possible. That evolution as a species is possible. And just like a virus can evolve and mutate to survive, so can humans. The question is, will humanity use this opportunity to evolve? Will the lessons we are learning be put to good use? If so, how do you think they will be effective? What new boxes have been created for you? Has your understanding of our economic system changed? How? What would you suggest we do different? How high up the ladder of understanding do you want to climb? Are you motivated to change by the recent events, or do you just wish everything would go back to normal? Is normal the best way? So these are some of the questions I would like to discuss. I would like you guys to go ahead and type your comments below in the stream so that others can read it, others can reply, and we can kind of have an online conversation about this subject. I will also be doing maybe a little quiz about maybe some vocabulary from our talk, and just so you're getting some straight vocabulary and you have an assignment you can turn in for recording assignments. But mostly I want us to be thinking, analyzing, shifting our perspectives, getting information from other sources, other people's perspective. How does it affect us? It is through others' perspectives that we can see the same thing that we were already looking at through other windows, to see how other people see it. It helps us evolve, it helps us change, it helps us get a bigger picture. And so I'd like you to think about these questions. I'll put some of the questions here in writing, and I'd like you just to start answering them, typing your answers, having a conversation. This is not a 1, 2, 3 answer without question 1. This is a how do you feel? What do you think? Pick any of the questions I've asked. Discuss, ramble, let your thoughts go on the keyboard. So that's it for this week. I hope you're all doing well. I really wish I could be with you and talk to you about this in class, and that we had time to discuss this for hours with each other, because it's a big question, and this is maybe a once in a lifetime event and thus opportunity to learn. And so thank you for being good students. I miss you all, and I hope you're doing well. Take care.